friends, Mrs. Turner here with your next installment of Wishtree by Katherine Applegate. I'm reading this with permission from Scholastic. When we left off, boy, high school age maybe boy, had carved leave into the trunk of the tree outside Samar's family's house, and the police had been called there, just to remind you guys. And Francesca, the owner of the tree, was thinking about maybe it's time to cut Red down. So that's where we are right now. Chapter 16. When you're a tree, a phrase like cut it down is bound to get your attention. Francesca had hinted at such things before, but always in jest. After a long October afternoon raking my newly shed leaves into crisp hills, or after a particularly messy wishing day, or after stepping on my acorns in bare feet. I felt bad about the walkways. It's an occupational hazard to stay alive. I need a vast network of roots, and roots can be surprisingly strong. Did you hear that? Bongo asked, watching Francesca enter her house. She sounded serious this time. I've heard it all before, I said. Unfortunately, the newbies heard her too, Bongo said. Bongo calls every fresh crop of babies newbies. She pretends to be annoyed by their antics, but I know better. Listen, Bongo urged. Sure enough, I could hear the baby skunks wailing from their hidden nest under the porch. But we love Red, Mama, one of them cried. Hush, their mother, Fresh-Baked Bread, scolded. It's the middle of the day. You're supposed to be asleep. You're crepuscular. Crepuscular creatures like fireflies, bats, and deer are especially active at dusk and dawn. Will Red be all right, Mama? Another baby, whose voice I recognize as Rose Petal, asked. All skunks name themselves after pleasant scents. I'm not sure if this is because they're a bit defensive about their reputation or they just have a sly sense of humor. Of course, said her mother. Red is indestructible. Bongo looked at me. See what I mean? Oh, dear, I said. By tonight, they'll have all heard. The possums, the raccoons, the owls. Little Harold will be beside himself. Here is a picture of the skunk family. Harold was a small barn owl nestling and a great worrier. Barn owls give themselves sensible, no-fuss names. I'll talk to everyone, Bongo said. Calm them down. Tell them not to worry. I'm sure things will be fine, I said. I've seen a lot in my years. The things I've fretted about that I have never come to pass. I could write a book. I paused. In fact, I could be a book. I paused again. Because, you know, paper is made of trees. Bongo gave a screechy crow laugh. She didn't even scold me for my lame joke. That's when I started to worry. Chapter 17. As much as I was concerned about the baby's reaction to Francesca's words, I was more worried about Samar. What would happen when she returned home from school and saw the word carved into me? Would she think it was meant for her and for her family, as Francesca and the police seemed to assume? She came home alone. Ahead of her by a few yards was Stefan. A reporter from the neighborhood newspaper was waiting on the sidewalk, interviewing people as they walked by. Word travels fast in our parts, especially when there's yellow police tape involved. Had they seen what had happened? The reporter kept asking. Had they ever made wishes on the wishing day? What did they think the word leave meant? The reporter approached Stefan. Did he know why someone would carve leave into the beloved local wish tree? Stefan stared at the reporter. Then he glanced behind at Samar, sending her the shadow of a sad smile. Without answering the reporter, he headed towards his house. Samar's eyes darted from Stefan to the reporter to me. She ran closer, saw the word, and gasped. She reached a hand towards me, but the police tape put me out of reach. Are you a resident? The reporter asked. Would you like to comment on the incident? Samar didn't say a word. She turned and walked up the sagging steps of the little blue house, her head held high, standing tall, reaching deep. Chapter 18. Around 6 that evening, Sandy and Max returned. When the police knocked on the door of the greenhouse, Stefan's parents opened it and answered questions. They shook their heads. They shrugged. Then they shut the door and closed the curtains. When the police knocked on the door of the blue house, Samar's parents opened it and answered questions. They rubbed their eyes. They sighed. Then they, too, shut their door and closed the curtains. As Sandy and Max headed back to their cruiser, Sandy paused beneath me. I wonder if we should make a wish, she said. Might be our last chance. I'll tell you what I wish for, Max said. I wish I didn't have to investigate things like this. Sandy patted his shoulder. I wouldn't hold my breath on that one. As for me, I spent the evening hours reassuring the parents and offspring who called me their home. They weren't just worried about where they would have to move, of course. They were worried about me. I was worried about me too. I didn't want to leave the world I had loved so much. I wanted to meet the next spring's owl nestlings. I wanted to praise the new maple sapling across the street when it blushed red at sunset. I wanted my roots to journey further, my branches to reach higher. But that is how it is when you love life. And I could accept that my turn had come. That if my turn had come, it had come. After a life as fine as mine, who was I to complain? I was worried about the babies, though, about their parents scrambling to find new, safe places to line their nests, dig their burrows, hide their winter stashes of acorns. Most of all, I was worried about Samar. I don't know why. Perhaps it was because she reminded me so much of another little girl from another time long ago, a little girl I managed to shelter successfully, Francesca's great-grandmother. Like I said, we go way back. Chapter 19. Long after midnight, Samar came to visit me. She wore a blue robe. Her dark, curly hair was pulled back in a loose ponytail. Her eyes held the moonlight in them. She sat at the base of my trunk on her blanket. She didn't look at the carved word or the splinter of moon or the blue and green houses. She just sat quietly and waited. It always took a while, but it always happened. One by one, the babies ventured out to see her. Harold was first, flapping awkwardly down to the ground. The raccoon babies, you, and you, were next. Raccoon mothers are notoriously forgetful, so they don't bother with traditional names. The possums, the skunks, they all came. Samar sat quiet, so perfectly still. The babies circled her. Here is the raccoons and the babies, you, and you. Together they sat in the shimmer of moonlight and listened to my leaves rustle. Bongo settled on Samar's shoulder. Hello, she said in her crow version of Samar's voice. Hello, Samar said, echoing her echo. Bongo squawked, and Samar jumped a bit. Even Bongo's quietest caw is a bit on the harsh side. Bongo flew up to my smallest hollow and poked her head inside, her tail feathers still visible. With something shiny in her beak, she returned to the ground in front of Samar. She gently placed a tiny silver key attached to a long faded ribbon in Samar's open hand. It's beautiful, Samar whispered. Thank you. Bongo bent forward, wings spread in sort of a bow. It was, in crow circles, a sign of great affection. I'd seen that key before. Bongo had inherited it. It was from her mother. Crows live in extended families, and they pass information across generations. It didn't surprise me that Bongo still had the key or that she decided to give it to Samar. In the sweet calm, surrounded by everything I loved, moonlight, air, grass, animals, earth, people, I wondered with a pang how much longer I'd be able to savor such moments. I wondered, too, if I had done enough for the world I loved. It was something I had asked myself before, but impending death has a way of focusing your attention. Sure, I provided plenty of shade, made oceans of oxygen for people to breathe, been a home to endless parades of animals and insects. I had done my job. A tree is, after all, just a tree. Like I told Bongo, we grow as we must grow, as our seeds decided long ago. And yet, 216 rings, 864 seasons, and still something was missing. My life had been so safe. Upstairs, a curtain in the greenhouse moved. Behind it, Stefan was just visible, watching us. I knew what he was thinking. One of the advantages of being a good listener is that you learn a great deal about how the world works. In Stefan's eyes, in the way he looked at Samar that afternoon, I saw something I had seen many times before. A wish. Chapter 20. After Samar left, I felt restless. Restlessness is not a useful quality in a tree. We move in tiny bits, cell by cell, roots inching further, buds nudged into the sunlight, or we move because someone transplants us to a new location. When you're a red oak, there's no point in feeling fidgety. Trees, as I said, are meant to listen, to observe, to endure. And yet just once, before I said goodbye to the world, what would it be like to be something other than passive, to be an actor in the stories unfolding around me, maybe even to make things a little bit better? Bongo, I said softly, are you awake? I am now, she grumbled. I have a question. I'll get back to you first thing in the morning. How does friendship happen? Bongo responded by snoring. I could tell it was a fake snore. Her real snores are so loud they scare the baby possums. I'm serious, I said. Bongo groaned. I don't know, it just happens. But how does it happen? Friends have things in common, Bongo said, and there you go. Your answer in 5 words. See you in the AM, pal. Thought about her reply. But what do you and I really have in common when you get right down to it? With a loud exhale, Bongo flew to the ground. Okay, I'm thoroughly awake now. Thank you very much. What is this all about? Just an idea. Here's an idea for you. Ideas are a bad idea, said Bongo, especially if someone is in busybody mode. I'm looking at you, Red. Back to my question. Why are we friends? Okay, fine. Let me think on it for a minute. Bongo walked in a slow circle around my truck, considering. I love the way birds move, so unlike trees. We bend with the wind. We're graceful and unhurried. Birds, on the other hand, move in flits and twitches. Their heads whip from side to side as if they just heard astonishing news. Bongo paused. Well, to begin with, you're my home, and I'm your tenant, but that's not really a reason for us to be friends. I have had residents I wasn't particularly fond of. That squirrel, what was his name? Squinch, the one with the bad breath? It's not important. Knew it was Squinch. Bongo, I said, please focus. Bongo gazed up at me. We're friends because we're friends, Red. Isn't that enough? Her voice was small and sweet, not her usual get-to-the-point crow tone. You're right, I said, but suppose 2 people needed to be friends. How would you make that happen? Maybe get them together, doing something? They yak, share a laugh. Viola, friendship. Am I right? I don't like it when you say Hmming leads to ideas. You can go back to sleep, Bongo. Thanks for talking. You're a good friend. Likewise, Bongo flew back up to her nest. Hey, be sure to let me sleep in. Bongo, now what? One more thing. Why do you think people can be so cruel to each other? It's not like the rest of us are exactly angels. Last night I saw Agnes eat a whole lizard in one bite. Agnes, the barn owl who lived with her nestlings in my highest hollow, flapped her wings in annoyance. Hey, a girl's got to eat, and you're a fine one to talk, Bongo, she said. Is there anything crows won't eat? My point, Bongo continued, is that the world's a tough place. Doesn't matter if you're a bunny or a lizard or a kid. With that, Bongo started snoring, for real this time, but I was still wide awake. Here's a picture of Bongo. Ma, what's that horrible noise? Came the startled voice of the baby possum. That's just Bongo sleeping, her mother replied. Bongo had been right. I was hatching an idea. She always said I was a busybody, not to mention an optimist. An optimist Budinsky. Well, there are worse things. Trees are the strong silent type, unless we're not. Chapter 21. Bongo, I said early that morning as the last stars faded like weary fireflies, there's something I need you to do. Does it involve potato chips? Bongo mumbled. No. Then I'd rather sleep. It's about Samar. You promised you'd let me sleep in. I didn't promise. You implied. I want to grant Samar's wish. This roused Bongo. She fluttered down to her favorite branch, the one she had nicknamed home plate. Bongo likes to watch the kids play softball in the elementary school. Red, you don't make wishes happen. You're in the place where wishes go. You're like a leafy garbage can in a good way. For 216 rings, I've sat on my roots and listened to people hope for things. And a lot of the times those wishes never happen. Those wishes never happen, I'm guessing. Sorry. Bongo tucked a feather into place. Sometimes that's for the best. Remember that kindergartner who wanted a bulldozer? I'm passive. I just sit here watching the world. You're a tree, Red. That's kind of in your job description. This is a good wish, and it's a wish I can make happen. I pause. Well, we can make it happen. Yeah, I had a feeling that's where this was going. Bongo glided to the ground. Look, I heard Samar's wish. How exactly are you going to find her a friend? You'll see, I said, hoping I'd sounded more confident than I felt. Red, Bongo paced back and forth. With each step, her head bobbed forward. We've got more serious issues, pal. Francesca's talking about turning you into toothpicks, and your residents are frantic about where they're going to move if that happens. She came close and nudged me fondly. Of course, they're worried about you, too. I know that. Fresh-baked bread poked her head out from under the porch. It was barely dawn, and only the white stripe running down the length of her face was clearly visible. I've offered to take in one of the tree families temporarily, she announced. Preferably the possums. They're better behaved than the ewes. That's very generous of you, Fresh, I said. But I was interrupted by Big Ewe, the mother of the 3 raccoon babies. She was in my large hollow, grumbling under her breath. I beg your pardon, she exclaimed. You, and you have excellent manners. They're too inquisitive, said Fresh-baked bread, always poking their noses where they shouldn't be, grabbing things with their little paws of theirs. Well, at least they don't stink, Big Ewe cried, and your children have paws last time I checked. Harry Spiders, the mother possum, peeked out cautiously from her hollow. Possums name themselves after things they fear. Stink is in the nose of the beholder, said Harry Spiders, and while I personally think your children have a delightful odor, Fresh, I've already got dibs on the woodpile 2 doors down, should anything happen to dear Red. She patted me. No offense, love, just thinking ahead, you know. No offense taken, I assured her. I saw the pile first, Big Ewe cried. Share the skunk den, Harry Spiders said. I wouldn't be caught dead in that place, Big Ewe exclaimed. Not now, not that I know my inquisitive children aren't wanted. Well, they are a bit boisterous, said Harry Spiders. At least my children have spunk, said Big Ewe. Your kids faint when they see their own shadow. Playing possum is a useful adaptation, said Harry Spiders, her pink nose twitching. The world is a dangerous place, and in any case, we can't control it. It just happens. Here are the possums. Very cute. If I may interrupt, came a cool voice from my highest branch. It was Agnes. There's a nice-looking linden tree 2 blocks away, just vacated by a gray squirrel family. We're looking at it as a possibility, but there's a tomcat that runs loose there. Collar, no bell, so that's an issue. Also a big, slobbery dog. There he is. In fairness, all dogs are slobbery, Bongo observed. I really think you should all calm down, I interrupted. Let's not buy trouble. One day at a time, my friends. Who knows what tomorrow will bring? The mothers glared at me. I heard a great deal of sighing. Too much, wise old tree? I asked. Too much, wise old tree, Bongo confirmed, as everyone retreated into their homes in a huff. They're all a bit tense, Bongo said, worried about your situation. I can see that. I'm worried too, Bongo said in an almost whisper. I know, I said gently, but every cloud has a silver... Red, Bongo interrupted. Sorry. There must be something I can do, Bongo said. You're a good friend, Bongo, but sometimes all you can do is stand tall and reach deep. Red! Sorry, I said again. What will I do without you, Red? Bongo said softly. You'll be fine, my friend, I promise. We both fell silent. At last, Bongo shook herself, feathers fluffing. In any case, maybe not the best time to be granting wishes at is my point. Seems to me this is exactly the right time, I replied. Bongo groaned her little old man groan. She knew I wasn't backing down, and with that, we began to plan. Here we go. Chapter 22. We executed plan number 1 an hour and a half later when Stefan headed off to school. He'd gotten only as far as the sidewalk when Bongo dove straight towards his backpack. Poking at the zipper with her beak, she cawed frantically. When crows want to be loud, they can be extremely loud. What? Stefan cried. What is wrong with you, bird? He dropped his backpack to the ground. Bongo landed on the backpack, looking up at him hopefully. Chip, please, she said. Stefan rolled his eyes. Seriously? Hello, Bongo said. Chip, please. Stefan put his hands on his hips. Okay, fine. I've seen you in action, working the bus line. Bongo hopped to the ground as Stefan unzipped his backpack. You rock, she said politely. Stefan pulled out his lunch bag and opened it. Let's see, I've got a tuna fish sandwich, carrot sticks. But before he could say anything more, Bongo plunged into the backpack, grabbed a sheet of paper, and flew skyward. Hey, that's my English homework, Stefan cried. Come back here, you thief. Bongo flew high into the branches and landed with a victorious caw. Stefan stalked around the bottom of my trunk, where the yellow police tape encircled me. Please, Crow, he pleaded. I'll give you my whole sandwich, please. Bongo perched on the paper, freeing her beak. No way, she replied. A few minutes of grumbling and Stefan gave up. Great, he muttered as he grabbed his backpack. Mrs. Colorman is never going to believe me when I tell her a crow ate my homework. Last chapter for today. Chapter 23. When Samar exited her house, it was time for the rest of our plan. She paused, as she always did, to say hello, and Bongo, as she always did, said hello back. But this time, Bongo surprised Samar by landing on her shoulder and presenting her with a mangled piece of paper. Samar took it from Bongo. This says Stefan's name on it. Why on earth do you have it? No way, Bongo said, by the way of an answer. Well, I'll be sure he gets this, Samar said. Bongo gave a little caw and headed back to me. Perfect, a simple plan, beautifully executed. Samar would give the homework to Stefan. They'd strike up a conversation on the crazy crow in the big oak tree. They'd laugh, they'd share, they'd realize they had a lot in common. Viola, friendship. It was a great plan, except for the part that came just 2 seconds later, the part where Samar noticed a friend of Stefan's walking by. She dashed over and asked him to give Stefan the piece of paper. And that was that. Meddling isn't as easy as I thought it would be, I confessed to Bongo. Hey, I did my part. You were wonderful, I said. We'll just have to try again. We don't have a lot of time. Red, Bongo said with a sigh. Please don't remind me. We're going to stop right there. I hope you guys are enjoying the book. See you later.